Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Restoring Baseline. This is episode 2 now. We're only getting better. This episode is about the single idea that everything else I talk about is built on. Why is an entire generation depressed, anxious, and directionless, despite us having more comfort than any humans in history? Now, I don't think the answer is complicated, right? We're animals living in the wrong environment. What happens to animals in zoos, right? They've got food safety, there's no predators, they've got medical care, right? Vets looking after them, climate control. They can go inside in the winter. By every material measure, their lives are better than in the wild. Same as us, right? We have everything we need in our own houses now. Most of us are living with more comfort than every king to ever live before like 200 years ago. And yet, zoos and people, depression, obesity, aggression, repetitive behaviors, right? Pacing back and forth, a loss of reproductive drive. We're both experiencing the same problems, and it's because we've done the same thing to ourselves. And we don't blame the animal in the zoo, right? We don't blame something that was born in captivity for the way it feels. It doesn't know any better, right? A lion in a zoo, a lion born in a zoo, its body knows that it was built for something else, but consciously it doesn't know anything else. It thinks that that's what life is, so it can't put a finger on it. And that's the same feeling of unfulfillment that we have in our lives. You can't really tell what it is. It's just that sort of baseline boredom, that feeling that something's not right. It's the same in both of us. So recognizing it is the first step to fixing it. I've got it written down here. A 2008 study, over 80% of captive carnivores show stereotypic behaviors, right? A tiger pacing in a cage is not exercise for it. It's a broken animal. We are that tiger pacing around the cage, except it was humans in the past that built that cage for ourselves. No one in the moment ever thought, I'm going to make life worse for the next generation. Everyone thought that they were building something better, the same way an ancient human would want to make life easier for their children. We kept doing the same thing, but no one ever stopped to think that easier is not better. And so that's the basis of everything I talk about, is what can we do to find the hard things that we need to reintroduce that are going to bring back that fulfillment. That's what restoring baseline is. The baseline human should be happy every day and fulfilled. Depression and anxiety don't exist in the wild. So what can we do to get back to that? And then once we're there, can we go beyond baseline, right? This modern world we're living in also has the potential for the greatest life that a human could ever live, right? We can go so far beyond what they used to be capable of. So what do we reintroduce to make life better? Um, there's that video that I talk about a lot of a tiger being released back into the wild, and it's terrified, right? It doesn't know that it was built for freedom because it grew up in captivity, and the known slavery is always going to be less frightening than the unknown freedom. That's the story of Exodus. That's every person watching this right now who knows that they should change, but stays because at least they know what tomorrow is going to look like. The brain and body that you have now. We spent 300,000 years as Homo sapiens, right, living in the wild. 99% of it was as hunter-gatherers. We only had agriculture 10,000 years ago. The Industrial Revolution was, I think, 250 years ago. Smartphones, that was in the 2000s. Our brains and bodies have not changed, right? We've just got ancient hardware in a world that we're not built for. So all of our sensory data that's coming into our brain does not know how to interpret it as anything other than wild information. That's why when you get something sweet, your body craves it, because finding that in the wild would be so good for you. But when we have abundance, when sweetness is everywhere, your brain doesn't shut off. It's never going to say no. It's always going to follow the path of least resistance, because this abundance is not what it was built for. The things that we tend to think of as ancient history, right? Like the Romans, the Egyptians, even that we think of as ancient is not what we were built for, right? This modern world is even more insane. We've had exponential growth just in the last 100 years. You know, planes were only invented about 100 years ago. And since then, we've allegedly gone to the moon and back. We have reusable rockets. It's insane how fast we've gone. And if you don't take the time to recognize how insane that is, you're never going to get rid of that. What the old world looked like, right, was small groups of about 50 to 150 people where you knew everyone. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing right now. That's why we feel so isolated. That's why we have this male loneliness epidemic. that feeling that you used to get at school, where every person that you saw, you at least recognize their face. Even if you don't know them, you recognize their face. And that's community. If someone did something insane, right, someone that you didn't know, word would travel and that person would face repercussions. The community we're living in now, there is no help, there is no safety net for someone when they go off the path. And that's why it's so easy to go off the path, because it's normal to do so. There's no one checking in on you, because there's no one in charge anymore. No one knows how to live in this life. All your teachers at school, they were just as depressed and unfulfilled as you. And so we look for other people to guide us, but there isn't anyone there. We're used to another thing. We're used to constant movement, right? We for that 99% of history, we would walk 9 to 15 kilometers a day. We would sprint every day. There were real dangers, real consequences, and real purpose every day. There was no abundance and surplus, right? There was no boredom or choice paralysis, because there weren't any choices. You needed to do the things you needed to do, and you didn't have to spend any conscious thought thinking about what you were going to do next. That's what's overwhelming for us now, is having to constantly think, oh, I need to cut out seed oils. I need to stop using non-stick pans. I need to get to the gym. That's the conscious thinking that's overwhelming, and that is going to drive you being overwhelmed and unfulfilled. We want to try and set our lives up to replace the autopilot, the flow state that your brain is built for. It's built to maintain, right? It's never going to grow on its own. You need to force it to grow once. You need to enforce those changes once, and then leave it to flow, right? Because that's what it's good at. It's always just going to maintain where you are, because it considers that a safe state. Now, I learned this the same way that anyone learns things these days, which is from YouTube videos and podcasts. I had never seen how humans live before until I watched the Outdoor Boys living with the Hadza tribe, and David Cho on Joe Rogan, who lived with them as well. It was probably the same tribe that just like takes in tourists. But it's so insane that we're that disconnected from the hunter-gatherer life that we lived, that most people don't know what they're supposed to do. Most people don't even know that we're runners, right? Most people don't know that our sweating and endurance and speed is our superpower. They don't know why they like holding sticks, right? Young boys, we pick up sticks or swords or something, a tool. Why does that feel good to us? Why does it feel good to hold something in our hand like that? And it's because we evolved to understand that tool use is what sets us apart. Holding spears, bow and arrow, rocks, that's where our power comes from. And if you can tap back into that feeling, then you can tap back into the baseline fulfillment that early humans had. If you can find a way, because we can't go back. They don't have anxiety, depression out there. Baseline is to wake up and know exactly what you're supposed to do. And if you go and watch one of those videos, if you listen, you'll see the life that we're being in nature. It's echoes of the real thing. An example of this, right? Why are we scared of spiders and snakes? Why is that built into everyone? We evolved that way because they used to kill us. So, of course, it's only natural that when we see one, we're going to instinctively jump back. It's going to be excuse me. It's going to be an instinctive fear, and brain evolved, and this is so insane when I found this out. Your brain evolved to have red light receptors, right, just at the top of your eye. And if you don't know, your eye is a lens that flips what you see upside down. So we see everything upside down, and then our brain inverts it again and puts it right side up. So we have these red light receptors in our eyes just at the base of our vision, right? So we have literally built into our biology a system that detects red light at a low level in our environment. That's campfires, right? That's from how long we've had fire, another tool that we were built to use. We've evolved to take advantage of that. And so when you have a campfire or something and you're sitting around it with friends, with your community, that's the safest that you can possibly feel. Your body doesn't know what being in like an isolated room in the dark, that's scary to it. It thinks it's in the wild. But if you can mimic that feeling of safety that you get from sitting around a fire, and there's so many ways to do this, right? Literally just red lights, incandescent bulbs, candles, your brain will seek it out. And so many people don't know this. So many people keep their, the big light on into the evening, and it destroys your sleep. There's so many things like this that if you can just, you don't even need to know the science behind it, right? It helps to understand stuff like that, like the red light receptors in your eye, but you don't need that. You just need to look for things that are like, okay, obviously humans would enjoy that. Obviously we evolved to sit around campfires, to throw spears at wild pigs. What is it that we're after when we play football? Why do we want to get together in a team with our peers and chase something around a field against a group of rivals, right? Think about it. The answer will come to you. Hopefully you all understand the idea. So what did we replace that world with, right? Isolation, communication through screens, which your brain does not understand as real communication, and sedentary by default, right? We live in a world now where movement is optional. So every time you stand up to go for a walk or stand to do your work, I'm sitting down right now, it's optional. You have to motivate yourself to get up. And that's the issue that I really see in a lot of people, is that they're relying on motivation to get themselves up. It doesn't work. Your body is always going to choose the path of least resistance. It's always going to choose the easy thing. So you have to force yourself to adopt behaviors that get you moving. And once you do, right, it's going to work. It's going to make you feel good. I go for a walk with my girlfriend after dinner every single day. And at the start, maybe the first week, it was like, okay, for fuck's sake, we have to go for a walk now. Like, we can't watch TV. Let's just do it. And after that week, that's all it takes. You realize that you feel better. You realize that you're connecting better. You realize that you have more mental clarity than before. And it helps with your digestion and sleep, by the way, if you go for a walk after dinner. Google up digestion walks. But you have to set up habits. You have to force yourself first, and then you'll realize there's some things that they won't click for you until you do them, and then things will get really easy from there. The same is true for real danger, right? I talk about this a lot. Real stress and real fear. If you don't get those from something in your life, whether that's a combat sport, I've been doing Muay Thai now for I think like 3 years. I spar twice a week. I train 3 times a week. If you can get real fear from something, everything else gets easier, right? Alex Honnold talks about this, and I reference it a lot. He's the guy that free solos stuff, by the way, climbs massive cliffs, climbed that building, Taipei 101, I think, without a rope. And he looks around at other people in airports and stuff. He sees them so stressed out from traveling, and he's like, why are you so stressed out? You're in a climate controlled area. You've got abundance all around you. There is zero real repercussions if you get something wrong in the environment you're in. But if you don't get that feeling of fear and stress from something real, your body is going to find it somewhere else. That's why you get that sort of rush of adrenaline in like a job interview or something, or when you get an email from your boss. Your body doesn't realize the gravity of it, because that's the highest stress thing that you've given yourself. And your highest stress thing is a set response, right? Whatever stresses you out most, you're going to react 100% to every time. So you need to find a route to exercise that 100% stress response in an environment where it helps you. And for me, that's combat sports. That's fighting, right? No, I say fighting. It's not real fighting, but it activates that same part of your brain that real fighting does. You need to find something that really scares you, because then once you get that experience every week, you set your baseline for your brain of, this is when we need to get scared. This is when we need to have that burst of adrenaline. And you just won't get that response anymore. A lot of people don't like me saying this because it sounds like not humble, like, oh, I don't get scared of stuff that you do anymore. But it really is true, right? You can fix that fear response, and you will not get scared by things that scare other people. And that's a nice way to live. It makes you feel good about yourself. We have another problem, which is infinite choice, infinite comfort, and infinite entertainment. That's the overwhelming feeling that you get with, what am I supposed to do next? It's a really important question. And it's one that you only ask yourself when you're bored, right? You think, well, what am I supposed to do? If I told you right now, turn this podcast off, stop watching TV, put your phone down, the first thing that you think of is, well, what am I supposed to do instead? People have always felt like this, right? Well, for the last sort of couple hundred years. Before TikTok, it was watching TV. Before that was radios. Before that, it was just hanging out with their friends. People hate being alone and thinking for good reason. There's no need and it's uncomfortable. But in the world we're living in right now, we replace that feeling, right? We replace the state of, well, what am I supposed to do next with distraction. And so you never get to the answer of what am I supposed to do next. And we have this massive selection of options, none of which are beneficial. And so when the only things that you choose from, right, is scrolling through Netflix looking for the next thing to watch, it feels like you're deciding what to do and it's intentional, but it's all the same thing. It's all just distraction. In 1973, in 1973, a scientist won the Nobel Prize for showing that eggs will abandon their own real eggs and sit on painted wooden ones instead, right? Because the fake eggs were bigger and brighter, and their brains just responded to that signal. They couldn't help it, okay? And the fake signal was stronger than the real one. That's what your phone is. That's what processed food is. That is what porn is. It's supernormal stimuli, right? Signals stronger than anything that exists in nature. It makes you feel like your instincts are broken, right? When they are pointed towards something that isn't real and you can't figure out why you're driven to that, why you're getting tricked. You're being exploited by things that are designed by scientists to be more appealing than reality, and you are never going to beat them with willpower, the same as those birds. You have to make a change consciously once and then be on autopilot from there. Just exclude them, focus on the real for the signals of that old world, that 99% of history. It's a world where sweet tasting food meant ripe fruit, so that gave you energy. You always are going to want to follow that if you're in the wild. Why would you ever not? But now we've got engineered sugar that's 100 times sweeter than ripe fruit. It tastes better. It just does. So it triggers parts of your brain that you can't switch off. This is the same thing with like OnlyFans and porn, right? It's sexual arousal. It's intimacy. But it's not real. It's just tricking your brain into thinking, okay, here's an opportunity to, have a bunch of women chasing me, right? Competing for my attention. It makes you feel good, but it's not real. It's the same with likes and notifications. Another example, social feedback. That's mimicking approval from your tribe. And so it's addictive. All of this stuff is addictive and it's real addiction. Every addiction, right, is just supernormal stimuli that your brain didn't evolve to handle. Alcohol, drugs, we did not evolve for that. It's not a challenge that we're supposed to have to deal with. And so get rid of the shame around that. The same with like body positivity and people that have trouble managing their weight. Leave them alone, okay? It's not their fault. You're dealing with problems that are beyond what your body ever evolved for. And it's reading something off the screen. I want to talk about another thing while we're on this point, right? And it's this idea that you shouldn't ever see a stranger in your life. That concept doesn't make sense to your brain because for that 200,000 years that I've been talking about, where we were humans but not in society, every face that you saw would be someone that you know. If you see someone else, your brain recognizes it immediately as danger, right? Why is there another human that I'm not aware of? Why is there a competing tribe nearby? Your brain is still running that program. So when you walk through a city and your brain is scanning 500 strangers every day, even your neighbors, if you don't know them, it's pinging threats all day long, right? And it can feel like anxiety. That's what it turns into. But when you trace it back down, it's your survival instincts working exactly as designed for. It's just your environment that doesn't match what your body is looking for. And so the solution to that is not, it's either to change your environment or use your conscious mind to redirect your subconscious into not being overwhelmed anymore. It's trying to see the same people, trying to smile at everyone you see, trying to know the people that you see every day and turn that into your community, because loneliness kills more people than smoking every year, right? I want to talk now about cities more, and specifically about England. Okay, I grew up in London my whole life, and I think it's really the perfect case study for this because we were the first country to industrialize. We did the Industrial Revolution. We pulled an entire nation indoors, and look where it got us, right? Our culture is so cynical. We were the first to destroy nature, right? If you've ever watched a TV show about like the medieval times, or you've seen Game of Thrones, right? That's based on old England. The countryside here is beautiful. The wild used to be beautiful. We used to have wolves, wild boars, foxes. I think there were bears here at some point before they all got hunted. But I mean, first of all, big recommendation. David Attenborough did a whole series on the UK wilderness, showing us what we've lost. But the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries on earth now. We destroyed all of that. There's nowhere you can go that's left that's really wild, that feels like the wild. And that's why everyone in this country is so miserable, to be honest. We have this culture of not wanting, of accepting the world as it is, as if this modern world is the real one, right? Because it's been like that for so long. So we've got this culture of like, that's just the way it is, you know, at least you can have a pint on the weekend, trying to just cope every day, trying to just get by, and it is what it is. I think that growing up in a city in England is growing up as far from baseline as possible, right? This complaining about connection, or complaining as connection, and having misery and not liking the world as an identity, as a shared thing. I don't think that that's what British culture is. I think that that's just what happens to captive animals. Um, that's what happens to capture what the real wild feels like. And we never knew it. If you haven't been out of this country, some people have never even been out of London, right? Into the countryside. Wales is beautiful. The Peak District, the Lake District. There's so much beautiful countryside, but people do not go, especially ones people that grew up in cities. And they've been deprived of knowing what their real life is like. I think it's one of the biggest tragedies and one of the saddest things that you can ever hear when someone says that they love living in London. So what's the solution to this, right? We can't go back to being hunter-gatherers. I mean, you can give it a try, but I think if you set up a community, you'd probably get the police coming around asking for your license to live. We can't even wild camp anymore. The point is not to romanticize the past, right? The point is to use evolution as a diagnostic tool. I talked about Brian Johnson in episode 1, the guy that's trying to live forever, right? He destroyed his body for 42 years. He was depressed. He ate like shit. You know, all the things that humans do nowadays when they're not living intentionally. And he bounced back almost immediately. That's what really stuck with me from listening to a podcast with him. Your body has this innate ability to reclaim its humanity, right? It's never too late. So, instead of trying to remove all the bad things from your life, start with zero, right? Imagine you're a hunter-gatherer with nothing and add back only what genuinely helps. Think about things intentionally, right? Exercise. They already had that, right? They walked 15 kilometers a day average. Whole Foods, same. They ate what they found and killed and foraged. Porn, there was no signal remotely close to that in nature. 10 hours of screen time is the same. Their content was real experiences with real people. So I really think the best way that a human can live is basically a caveman with healthcare. And that's the thought experiment that I want to leave people with from this. For every habit, every substance, every app on your phone, ask yourself, would I give this to a hunter-gatherer? Would I give this to someone I'm caring for? And if the answer is no, then why are you giving it to yourself? That's really one of the core ideas I talk about, treating yourself like someone you're responsible for looking after. I want to talk about being average too, okay? Being average used to keep you alive. For 99% of human history, the people around you were the ones that survived. So your brain evolved to copy them, to be like them, and to do what they do, because if they were alive, that was the strategy that you wanted to follow, because really all your brain wants is to stay alive. So we want to be like them. We don't want to be weird. We don't want to diverge from the normal. And for all of our history, for 99% of history, that worked because the average person was strong and capable and lived in their natural habitat. Now look at the average, right? Average is like 10 hours of screen time. The average person is overweight or obese, probably depressed and directionless. Your brain is telling you to match the people around you. If you listen to that voice, you will end up exactly where they are. The instinct that used to save your life is now the thing destroying it. I don't know how long this has been, but I think I'm going to wrap this up here. I've got more I could talk about on this, but I think that I've probably played this idea out enough. If you've listened this far, hopefully you're already in the school community. I'm trying to put like-minded people together. Anyone that likes this podcast, my content. If you've made it this far, you probably already know about it. But if you aren't, go and check it out. It's on my website. I'll also plug the one-to-one coaching. This is the first this is the first group of people that I've ever had. If you want, you can join the wait list. I think we're going to make some real progress, and you should see testimonials on the website and in the community as they build. I think that's about it. Stay tuned, because I'm going to be dropping one episode a week on this, and also some YouTube videos during the week. Thank you for listening. Wait for next week. Yeah, thanks guys.